Welcome to this Q&A session. This is Antonella Poce from Roma Tre University in Rome, Italy. I welcome you all to this session that is called the Flexible Touch-Free Interactive Platform for Exhibiting Physical and Digital Student Works in a University Library. I am an MCN member and I'm really proud of that. And I'm here to welcome you and introduce the session. Just a few words on MCN. MCN is a nonprofit, volunteer-run professional organization committed to growing the digital capacity of museum professionals. MCN has developed a deep, active community engaged in year-round conversations, webinars, and resource sharing. As an MCN member, you can join special interest groups, participate in our mentorship program, which I really recommend, and shape MCN's future in leadership roles. SIG chairs, conference chairs, and with time the MCN board. If you are not already a member, we hope you join us. Learn more at mcn.edu. Also, I'd like to thank Microsoft, Registration Assistance Fund sponsor, Excel Ignite sponsor, and all the sponsors listed on the program schedule for helping make this conference possible. So today's session is a presenter Q&A conversation. So I really encourage you all to ask questions in the chat, and I'll try to call your name when the session starts. And if you're able to, please put your question on camera. We're using the chat box, as I said. Post your name in the chat box and you will be called, as I said. For Zoom webinars, of course, we are using the Q&A box again for questions. I'll introduce our speakers. First of all, Adam Rogers, Head of Making and Innovation Studio, North Carolina State University Libraries. Hello, Adam, nice to see you. Luis Zapata, Senior Designer, Developer, Relative Scale. Hello, Luis, thank you for being with us. And Luke Cline, Founder, Creative Director, Relative Scale. Thank you for being with us, Luke. So I'll leave the floor to Adam. Please, Adam, for your introduction, and we're all here looking forward to interact with all of you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. First I'll say thanks for taking the time to join us today. It's great to see so many faces of folks joining us virtually. I'll just say a little bit about myself in the context of the project. So I'm a librarian and work at a large academic library at NC State University in Raleigh, North Carolina, where this project is situated. My background in libraries is in public service and in makerspaces, and in that world, I've worked pretty closely with some museum partners, particularly on an IMLS grant called Making and Learning a number of years ago with Children's Museum of Pittsburgh and Exploratorium and others. But in the past few years, my work has shifted. I've gotten more into interactive exhibits within our public space in the libraries. And that's pointed my focus in the direction of the museum world. And so I was fortunate to go to MCN last year and learn a lot from you all, and then bring that into a project which we've gotten to collaborate with Luis and Luke on over the past year, that we'll be happy to talk to you all about. Hopefully you got to see our video and get some more details on the project. If you didn't, or if you just want a refresher, I've shared the slides from our presentation. I'll do that again. But I'll just say that this has been a really great project to work on. We're focused mostly on student works and how to exhibit them in an interactive context inside of our library, and also taking in many of the considerations of the current moment of interactivity and constraints on that. So I'll hand it off to my colleagues here, Luke or Luis, whichever one of you want to take on next.
Everybody, Luke Cline here with Relative Scale, Creative Director on the project. Thank you all very much for joining us today. Nice to see everyone virtually, as Adam said. Thank you very much to MCN for allowing us to have the platform today. So looking forward to the Q&A session, and thank you again for your time today.
All right, hey everyone, and I am Luis Zapata. I'm the senior designer and developer at Relative Scale, and kind of the lead designer for this project. Once again, just reiterate, I'm really glad to be here, and it's my first MCN conference, so thank you for joining our session.
So please, you can start asking your questions just to in the chat, of course, and then I'll call you when you insert your name. I can start with a question, having seen your video. Can you tell us more about the interactive dimension that you devised for your exhibition, and how I chair a center for museum education in my university, and I've been working with university collections, and I'm also part of a university museum, so I can understand the environment where you have been working. So I'm very curious about the reaction of the students, how you devised your project, but also what was the impact of your project with the students.
I can speak to that, probably just briefly. So we've not had time really to get a reaction from the students as users, since we've really just opened this semester, and this semester has been just utterly crazy for student life and for the library as a public space. But I can say for the students as creators, and the project is very much displaying student work and really highlighting creative projects from across the university, from the sciences to textiles, fashion design, humanities. The students that we've interacted with directly as kind of partners, content partners on the project, have been really excited to see their work brought into the library, put on display in the library, to be working on things that have a public audience. And the ones who have seen the actual interactivity have been really excited to see that, because not all of our students have a design skill set. We do have, a really great design school, but for students particularly who don't have that, to see their work brought into a really compelling design, interactive design is really great for them.
Absolutely. In fact, I was really impressed from your work, and also actually, anyway, I have lots of questions, but I don't want to occupy all the space. And I think there's a poll going. So please, all the attendees, please answer the question that are going to be shown here. The first one is going now.
Yeah, and thank you, Amy, for running that poll question. We just kind of wanted to get us, obviously, with everything that has been taking place this year with COVID, and motion sensing technology, as we all know, has been, yeah, it's not new. It's been around for quite a long time now. We just wanted to kind of get a sense for how many folks are currently working. Okay, well, there's the answer. So about 15% say yes, and about 85% say no. So that's good to know.
Mm.
For us, it was a little bit more fortuitous in one sense, because we started talking with Adam about this project about a year ago, really kind of before we knew we were going to start to enter this new world of thinking more about touchless and touch-free experiences. So it looks like Kelsey has a question.
Hi, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just curious. So it seems kind of fortuitous that you were already working on touchless technology, but I was working on a project a while ago, and we were exploring using like leap sensors to do touchless navigation through a timeline. And the museum ultimately decided to go with a more traditional touchscreen out of concern that users wouldn't understand it or be able to use it as effectively. So I was just curious how you have made kind of the functionality clear to users and how you've helped make that transition easy for them, because it is very cool, but maybe if it's not something they've seen before, it would be hard to know how to use.
Well, I think to kind of echo with that is one of the big things that we were trying to hit on is that because people are very familiar with touchscreens, is try to make that interaction feel as similar and as a touchscreen, that way when they get up to it, they see, instead of touch here, it's hover your hand here. You get that initial like, oh, I need to move my hand to this, and keeping it very simple in that realm of what is a tap, right? Or if it's a mouse button, like what is a click? Kind of staying within that sort of limited interaction vocabulary seemed to really help make that clear for people to get that interaction down and like learn what is the system. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we realized and accepted early that there was a slight learning curve, and we hoped that it would be a very short learning curve for the technology, but a lot of that was in the initial calls to action, with hover your hand here, swipe, et cetera, et cetera. So I think, once you do that once, right, then you immediately kind of intuit and understand what the interaction design is for that. So,
yeah.
And you can actually still touch on the table, right, Luis? I mean,
yeah, you can. Yeah,
you can. So you're not penalized if you happen to touch instead of a hover. So that's good. Thank you for that question.
Mm-hmm.
So talking from a very old-fashioned part of Europe, what can you tell us? I mean, maybe most of the attendees know, but from our side, it's not so common to have this kind of technology in our cultural institutions. Can you tell us more about the impact of such a technology in the post-COVID era? Which kind of effects this kind of technology and also uses do you figure out?
So is the question about the impact of this technology in the post-COVID era?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we're all sort of examining that and asking that, and at the same time maybe answering that in real time. And to Kelsey's question, we've experimented with the LEAP in years past, and we've done some more LEAP experiments this year as well. I think I would probably kind of summarize it. So we're a creative agency, and so it's in our DNA to always explore different technology. And the core of what we do is try to tell stories, but we don't want to just play with a shiny object at the expense of the story. But I think it's kind of in our DNA to always be looking for how we can use the technology to enhance the story, meet the audience where they are, and just kind of lower the barriers to engagement. So I think, Luis, this year we've really seen that this is a good opening and a good opportunity to, even beyond this project with NC State, to kind of push this further with other motion sensing cameras as well, just as an example. So like the Microsoft Azure camera, which actually came out just on the tail end of when we started this project. So I personally feel like there's, we're going to be seeing a lot more of that experimentation with those technologies. And I think that makes sense. If it works within the context of the exhibit and the experience that you're trying to create for the users. So I would anticipate seeing more of that for sure.
Yeah. And also and Adam, feel free to jump in on this one, but I think using things like a gesture camera and a projector has a lower barrier of entry for exhibits and in institutions of the like, as opposed to buying a big touchscreen, because the footprint is 120 inches by 60 inches. It's a pretty big space that allows upwards of 8 people to interact with the table at once. And to get that footprint and touchscreen would be quite expensive. And so thinking about that and then adding in the fact that it is germ reduced makes it very nice.
Absolutely. So there's a question from Catherine in the chat. Catherine, I don't know if you can ask your question on camera. Otherwise,
Great.
Hi, here you are.
Hi, I'm here.
Hello, nice to see you.
So this may be too early to ask, but since this is a platform sort of over time for changing exhibitions, sort of in the prototyping phase, or have you found sort of a relationship? Are certain exhibition components more successful? Are you guiding the students to certain types of content? I mean, it's the relationship of the interface to the content.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I think it's maybe too early to really say a whole lot, but I will say we were iteratively developing the content modules as we were receiving content from multiple content partners, about a dozen, from different disciplines and different, some undergraduates, some graduates, some like really deep individual projects, and some like more shallow project by multiple groups of people within a course. And so I think, we were really, focused on flexibility. And so, that was me. I think Luke and Luis understood that from the start, but I think also I was constantly pushing on that, like, we have a gallery. Can we have multiple galleries? How many ways can we use a gallery? Can we use a gallery as like almost as like a slideshow with like text information as well, or just as photos? Because I just know from working with students that there's such a range on a university campus. But one of the things that I think we didn't quite get, that I'm really looking forward to in the coming months, is to be able to show students the platform itself and show them the structure of it, and then to ask them to build things to that structure. Because it was very hard to explain without a visual. It was sort of like me trying to explain this thing, which is very, kind of abstract, as a platform with the modules, and so actually the early wireframes and prototyping that Luis and his coworkers did were really helpful in communicating with faculty, communicating with individual students about, oh, this is actually what it's going to look like, so that they could then work that into their thinking about the content. So there's projects that we kind of received done and that we sort of forced into the platform, and then there's other projects where there's more of a back and forth. And then what I'm looking forward to is projects that are built with the knowledge of the platform. So it's an interesting journey for us, I'd say.
Absolutely. There's Another question from John Turner. Are you there? Can you show yourself on camera? Don't know. Anyway, John is asking if you could speak to the nuance in the distinction between motion tracking and gesture-based control. Are they essentially the same?
I can speak to a little bit. And they're I found them to be very similar. Personally, we're actually using a variation of blob tracking within this. So we're not necessarily making a distinction of whether or not the thing that's interacting or within that depth plane is a person or not, mainly because it's a little bit hard to at the overhead angle to actually see that. When you get more into gesture tracking, which is what you see with the leap motion that does really well, is like, you know, if you're gonna do a grab, or if you're doing different like finger stuff, that comes a bit better at the distance. That'd be much harder with these depth cameras. So they're very similar, and they use similar back-end machine learning. But with this case, with the Intel RealSense, it's more of motion tracking.
Thank you. Thank you, Luis. So we have just 5 minutes left. As you have seen, this half an hour really runs very fast. Is there anything in particular that you all would like to underline to show the really strong strengths of the solution that you devised within this project?
Well, when you set it up like that, it just sounds like we have a big speech. But no, if I could actually, I'll just piggyback very quickly on what Adam referenced a few minutes ago, because I think and Luis would probably back me up on this, but I think probably the biggest lift was initially in that UX design phase, when we were simultaneously gathering content via Atom from the different departments at the university, all while everybody is in lockdown, and trying to keep our minds focused on the fact that we were creating something that the university can have curatorial control over, right? It needs to be flexible enough that they have the curatorial control, and they can decide if they want to make this one table 8 unique or discrete user experiences or stations, or if they want, 4 unique experiences at this one table, if they want to exhibit just digital content, just physical content, hybrid content, how they want to organize content, not just in a table, but around the room. So that was a really good piece of the work, I think, and a lot of the critical thinking, even just kind of like separate from the technology, which I think is just kind of important. I just wanted to share that because I think that's an important piece that we worked really hard on, so that Adam and his team could ultimately have as much control as possible. Because we were faced with the challenge, as Adam said, that we didn't have students there to actually come in and kind of help brainstorm this with us in real time. So.
And to add on to that is thinking about how to, like, with Adam's point of, since right now, well, the content that he was getting in was not designed for this platform, and hopefully, and that may not always be the case, but going forward, we all hope that there is some more back and forth, but realizing that it had to be useful and still designed like in a usability in a pretty way, that if there is limited content, as Adam said, like something that's very shallow, maybe 1 or 2 modules, that it still feels as rich and as friendly to use as something that has, another one which is like 15 modules of content, each with 3 different galleries of 10 plus images plus a video, and plus descriptions and facts and all that other stuff. So trying to make it still nice for everyone, and not that any student or faculty feels discouraged that they have less than someone else, that it is still presented in a very curated way.
It is a very, very challenging very, very challenging project and very interesting. I think we have just one minute to go. So I would like to thank you all for telling us about your project and your experience. I am personally very much interested, and I wish we could have a further talk about your experience working at the university, and so having the idea of involving students more and more. And I think this is a good way of involving them also from a very interdisciplinary point of view, you know, dealing with different kind of contents. So I really thank you. I hope this conversation will go on Slack. We have all many different opportunities to interact within the conference. So thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good to see you all.